Thank you so much to Carolina and Andrea for that wonderful sharing. And you've given us a lot to think about, and you've really told us so much I didn't know about the everyday struggles of so many women in Honduras. I really appreciate learning about it and wondering how now we as a community that cares about you should respond. And now I would like to turn to Sisters Kathleen Erickson and Diane Klein, who are going to share from their perspectives of Sisters of Mercy, both of whom have worked so much with Honduran people, with Central Americans in general, and at the border with our immigrants. I thank them both for being willing to come here and talk about what they know about the Foro and how it fits in with their work as Sisters of Mercy. So please, I invite the two of you now to share something.
Thank you. Kathleen, are you there? I'm waiting for you to start.
Oh, I thought you were going to start because you have been, yes, you start, Diane. I'm waiting for you.
To begin, just to thank both Carolina and her companion for the courage, the networking, the women that know one another, and the connections that are so clear. This is what has brought justice and the beginning of the fighting of the lack of truth, the lack of consciousness of the reality. It spreads from Honduras to the States when we do court accompaniment and hear the same cases. We had a Honduran woman living with us last year for 10 months whose family member was kidnapped, tortured. Family received communication about the torture to force a payment to release the person. Ultimately, that person was killed. This kind of atrocity is going on so silently without the women and the Foro and the connections that women make. It would have been impossible to find out or to protect anyone. So I just want to say my admiration and thanks for their way of connecting women with women and protecting. Kathleen, tell us a little bit about how this fits in a mercy context, how you see the critical concerns of mercy that are lived out in this way.
It is so clear to me that this whole situation with Honduras is a gift to know you all. It is a gift to have been in Honduras as often as I have. It has been a gift for me to meet the sisters in San Pedro Sula and to spend time with them, and also to meet many of the people of the Foro. Carolina, Andrea, I don't remember your face as well, but Carolina, I remember, and her mom, visiting with them and realizing the situation is so fraught with challenge, so difficult, and yet the sisters and the people in the Foro have such strength and such hope and life in them. And so I have been to Honduras many times. I remember being so impacted by the Foro when the first time or two that I was there, getting to see the work that you do. One of the times that I was there was a time when you were really pushing on the case of Norma, who was the blood sister of one of our sisters, and trying to go to I was just astounded at your courage. the efforts to try to get some response from the authorities and to go back again and again and try different sorts of protests. And I have been there when you have had press conferences with various entities to raise up the issues of what is happening to women in Honduras. I have been at the place where Nellie and some of the rest of you were doing the work to try to help women living in that horrible situation, to try to help them to learn ways to relax. There were people that were doing various forms of relaxation exercises, and we're doing also a lot of education. When we say, how does this connect with the Sisters of Mercy? We have what we call critical concerns. There are so many issues in the world, of course, but the Sisters of Mercy really emphasize women's issues. So in that sense, every time that we are in connection and are able to be helpful with what is happening with Honduran women, it fits in so well. But we also are worried about environment. And right now at this time, Honduras is being devastated by extreme weather issues, and it appears that that is going to be getting worse. So it's another connection with our concerns. There's also the question of immigration. And I spent 20 years at the US-Mexico border working with people. I have been on many delegations to Honduras, and then to be at the border about a year or so ago at Christmas time, talking with a woman from Honduras who had been waiting on the Mexico side of the border, desperate to get into the United States and seek asylum, and her telling me about the increase in the number of suicides among young people. And her tears and her story. I have visited a woman from Honduras in the county jail here in Omaha, Nebraska. Would you believe she was in that jail for over a year? And I would go and visit her, and I was in touch with the lawyers trying to figure out what was slowing it down. She kept saying, I would rather be in the jail and be alive than get deported back to Honduras, where I am sure I would be killed. So there's a lot of connection. Of course, another one of our concerns is racism, which has a lot to do with our immigration policies, I believe, in the United States. So I've seen the efforts, I've seen the wonderful women. I've actually met Carla. She came here she was on a tour, a singing tour, and she was actually here in Omaha, and we hosted an evening with Carla, and I'm so sorry, I cannot remember the friend that was with her that was also singing. But the Sisters of Mercy in San Pedro Sula have been there for a very long time. Diane knows them back further than I do, but my connections, I remember sitting with Sister Maspelli on the couch the evening after one of those fraudulent elections when Zamora we were pretty sure she was winning. Jose, you might have to help me with that. Was that 2017? And I remember going to bed at night, and all the counting was that she had won the election. And the next morning when I got up, they were sitting in the living room looking at the report out of the election. And of course, it was as though, during the night, they recounted or something happened, and and they didn't, of course, not win the election. Yeah. So I just have so much gratitude for all the connection I have had with Honduras, and I hope it continues.
So I'll pick up with a little of the background of what our sisters are doing, particularly in San Pedro Sula and Tegucigalpa, which is a small community farther north. Sandra Hernandez, Masbele del Cid, Nelly, Del Cid, and another of the associates have long been connected with a house for children living with HIV. And if you can imagine the layers, we have severe chronic ongoing illness with a time of such violence against women, with a pandemic that is spreading and not countered by the access to the medication that is needed. They're working with 26 children living with HIV, continuing education, going through the hurricanes that have doubly hit against Honduras. So there's so many levels, and yet every day they're working with the benefit of those children, with the neighbors, with the network of women, well, deeply connected with the Foro and all of its work. And there's an ongoing education of young people about their own political reality that is just amazing and is connected with all of the organizations of Foro. Their house is a community house living in a neighborhood where all of the concerns of the neighbors, people that have been arrested. At one point, one of the children, you know how kids can run away in a common situation. I went with Sandra to the police to report, because not that they were convinced there would be any response, but they wanted to be able to say it had been formally reported. I watched as an Anglo, clearly not part of the community, and yet the police gave no attention to what Sandra was reporting, but we could say that they had gone and reported. Women have experienced violence in the society and totally ignored. We continue to follow those cases in the United States at this point, but it's the courage of people there that has so inspired us. Besides this ongoing work with young people and getting their own government to provide the vaccine against HIV, so that women in going through the birth process will have the meds they need so the child will not be born with HIV. There is also a small cooperative of health in the north part of the country where natural medication methods are taught to the women. They have a whole array of plants that are local that the women can use for the health within their own community. And there's one of our associates and two of our sisters there. Our sisters are the Honduran sisters. United States people have come back to the States, but they continue their own work in their own community that goes back more than 30 years. So there's a mutual influence of that courage and presence, of mercy, presence, and compassion amongst the community. I think that's all I'll say right now.
Thank you so much, Sister Diane and Sister Kathleen, for sharing with us all the work that the Sisters of Mercy are doing, how you can see how needed their work is. So glad to have you for the first time, Sister Diane, and Sister Kathleen, glad to have you back. Years ago, you were a class speaker, and of course, Jose, you were our speaker just in November. And I'm so glad to have Carolina and Andrea for the first time. Let me tell you how we are going to proceed at this point. I want to prioritize giving students a chance to ask some questions, because we know students are on a tight schedule. And then after students have had a chance to ask a few questions, I want to turn to our last two briefer but nevertheless important speakers. Jose, Artiga from Share El Salvador, who's going to talk about the work he's doing in Honduras with delegations, and Jean Stoken, who's going to tell us about some legislation regarding Honduras that's in US Congress that really needs our help. And at that point, then we'll just open it up for questions for everyone for as long as you can manage to stay with us. So at this point, I have a student, Paige Myers. Paige, are you with us? Can you say hello?
Hi, everybody.
Paige, can you please share your statement, your response? And by the way, Paige is one of our students learning Spanish this semester, and Dr. Tiziana Carmona's class. So Paige, by all means, if you could share your statement. While you do it, I will, if you raise your hand, I will unmute you to ask your own question. Otherwise, if you write it in the chat, I will speak it on your behalf. So go ahead, Paige.
Oh, okay. In the ever-changing world that makes up our lives today, women's rights, los derechos de las mujeres, often get overshadowed and pushed in the background. As a gender, women have come a long way from the gender bias that once ruled the world. Whether it was earning our right to vote with the 19th Amendment or the continued fight for equal pay in the workplace, women continue to show our strength around the world. Women like Greta Thunberg have shown that no matter how old you are, your ability to make change and have your voice heard by the world should not matter whether you are a woman or a man, una mujer o un hombre. The fight and the need for our voices to be heard by the world will no longer be pushed back. No matter where we are from, no matter how old we are, we as women will continue to stand up and fight for our rights, luchar por nuestros derechos, until we live in a world where gender no longer equals bias, hasta vivir en un mundo sin prejuicios. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Paige, for sharing that message of support. I see that Yusuf has his hand raised. Yusuf, would you like to ask a question?
I was not supposed to raise my hand. I don't know what happened. Sorry about that one.
Okay, sorry about that, Yusuf. All right, Tariq has a question. Tariq wants to know, is there a link or a website where I could involve myself for change? Does anyone on the panel want to mention that? Or what we can do is we can put those links or websites in the chat. And in the meantime, I'll ask another question. And Tariq, if you have a chance, I encourage you to, Diane, did you want to say something?
Just briefly, it's so important that our consciousness be raised, that we know what is happening. It's not happening on a government level. It's dependent on every one of us taking a role in educating ourselves into the reality of what is going on and getting our congressional people to change the policy, change the support that is being given to the Honduran government by our government. So we need to become activists that are educated and conscious and convince others. Thank you.
All right. Now we have a question from Lauren for Carolina and Andrea. She asks, there are so many struggles that women face every day in Honduras that I didn't even realize. What is it that gives you the strength to keep fighting after facing so much injustice?
Yo les decía en el video, ¿verdad? Que realmente somos mujeres luchando de diferentes formas en diferentes lugares. Hay mujeres que realmente están defendiendo nuestro país, el territorio, que están siendo perseguidas. Realmente, y no es solo en Honduras, no sabemos que esto es a nivel mundial. En Honduras ahorita estamos viviendo una crisis más grande, pero yo creo que la fuerza, como les decía, es la fuerza colectiva, ¿no? O sea, es la fuerza de hermandad, de sororidad, de poder construir conjuntamente, es la fuerza y el legado que nos dejó Berta, Margarita y otras compañeras. Y bueno, es también no dejarnos robar la esperanza, ¿verdad? Que al final el sistema y el gobierno actual es lo que quisiera, que nos encerráramos, que nos quedáramos solo con miedo, que no siguiéramos soñando con el país que realmente merecemos.
Hola. También me gustaría decir que, bueno, aquí es donde vivimos, aquí es donde está nuestra familia, donde tenemos nuestra vida y es el lugar pues donde nos toca luchar, ¿verdad? Para que las condiciones pues, de nuestra vida diaria y de toda nuestra familia, de las mujeres que están a nuestro alrededor, cambien. Y también con la enseñanza y la fuerza que nos dan otras mujeres que han venido luchando, que nos enseñan con todo el amor, con todo el arte que tienen y es parte de esas energías que nos mueven para poder seguir.
Thank you so much for the question from Laura and also the answers. Thank you so much. I'd like to call on Jessica now. Jessica, would you like to share your question?
Yes. My questions are like more in general. Like, I just feel like, like all these issues, especially should be like in the media, like, all over like the news, but it just feels like our media is so limited to like news of like these kind of things from, anywhere like, like this, like woman, like, happening in Honduras and all this, like, like dictatorship that I never even knew about or heard of. And like, like just all over the world, like woman atrocities are usually like, I feel like in a way overlooked, like they're not as taken serious. And I just like want to know like what can we like, like why is it like that in a way, and what can we do to like bring more attention to these issues except like sign bills and stuff and bring more awareness?
Pienso que esto es parte de lo que podemos hacer, ¿verdad? En Honduras, pues los medios de comunicación, muchos de ellos pertenecen a grandes compañías o defienden grandes poderes. Recientemente se abrió un caso de corrupción muy grande, ¿verdad? Donde mucho dinero del Estado ha ido a dar a periodistas para que precisamente esta información no sale. Y sabemos que esto no pasa en Honduras, sino que pasa a nivel internacional. Entonces, el poder tener estos espacios públicos, poder llegar a través de los pueblos, ¿verdad? Sabemos que a veces no son los medios, no son los estados, sino que somos nosotras mismas, nosotros mismos conectando, llevando la información. Ahorita están moviéndose muchas cosas en los Estados Unidos, ¿verdad? Juicios que están incriminando a Juan Orlando Hernández, y que ustedes conozcan la información real y que esa información que también está sucediendo allá, que no llega del todo aquí o que llega a pedazos, que también pueda crecer. Eso también es algo importante, ¿no? Yo creo que como universitarias, como universitarios van a estar en muchos espacios, ¿verdad? Y poder llevar más allá de la imagen que se vende de Honduras, poder llevar la realidad tal que vivimos en Honduras ya es un paso importante.
Thank you for that question, Jessica, and for the answer. And now I want to share a question from Nina. It was mentioned that it is mainly the forum and the networking of women that are able to continue to help these women who are in need, to help when the state and government are not so much invested in investigating. Do you think that with the continuation of all the strong women pushing to further investigate, that the government will eventually want to help investigate femicides?
La pregunta.
Pasa es que actualmente estamos en un narcoestado y en una dictadura, así lo denominamos como pueblo y como mujeres organizadas. Sí han habido casos que se han logrado a través de la presión colectiva, que sean juzgados o que sean tratados de alguna forma. Pero realmente el mensaje que queremos dejar es un Estado o un gobierno que no está legislando por la vida de las mujeres, que no quiere legislar por la vida del pueblo, que lo que quiere es saquear nuestro pueblo, nuestros territorios, militarizar y controlar a través de la violencia en nuestro país. Entonces, con un gobierno así, difícilmente se pueden impulsar cambios. El cambio que nosotras queremos y por el que luchamos es para que ellos salgan y para que nosotras y nosotros como pueblo podamos recuperar este país que, como decía Andrea, es nuestro y por el que luchamos.
Carolina.
Okay, I have another question, and maybe this will be there's two more, and then we'll segue to our last two speakers. But Romana asks a question, and I'm sure that's because she's studying feminist philosophy this semester. She says, are there any historical feminist philosophers who influenced them to continue the fight against this injustice? Of course, we could broaden that to any feminists, any women who are their inspiration or role models, including philosophers.
A nivel internacional, sí, conocemos muchas mujeres que son parte de toda esta construcción feminista, pero yo creo que para nosotras los modelos más importantes son los modelos de mujeres de nuestros pueblos, ¿no? Las mujeres que han luchado y que han construido feminismos más comunitarios, feminismos que no tienen tal vez o no son basados en toda esa filosofía occidental, pero sí que se construyen desde las realidades de nosotras, ¿verdad? Y para nosotras hay modelos muy importantes de mujeres que tal vez no han sido parte de un movimiento filosófico feminista, pero sí son realmente quienes nos han guiado los pasos, ¿verdad? Como Berta Cáceres, como Margarita Murillo, como Enriqueta, como muchas compañeras que luchan día a día, y creo que el feminismo lo hemos ido construyendo de forma colectiva, de forma desde nosotras, desde los aprendizajes de cada una. Yo creo que ahí ha estado también el enriquecimiento, sin obviar, ¿verdad?, toda los movimientos y todo lo que ya existe de parte de la construcción feminista.
Great, thank you. At this point, I have one last question from a student, which I saved because it is a good segue to the next section, where I will ask Jose and Jean to share the work they're involved in so you can know how to get involved. I realize it's already almost 2 o'clock, and we thank you all for attending, and we hope that if your schedules are free, you can stay with us maybe another 15, 20 minutes more, and then we will wrap up if you have a chance. But we are going to turn now to Jose, who is going to tell us about, first, let me tell you, the question from Pujan is, how can we make a difference as college students from home in the fight for change in Honduras? So that's the question. And since he asked how to make a difference, I thought, Jose and Jean, you might have something to say in response to that.
Basically, we want to do small things that cause great change. And I want to talk about the planting of food. People are getting hungry because of all the problems that Honduras is having, and a number of organizations, including the Mercy Sisters, the Notre Dame, the Jesuits, you know, the communities in the Bajo Aguán, the communities of Berta Cáceres, of Copín, Foro de Mujeres, Paso a Paso, and several others have gathered and decided to facilitate the planting of food, what is called la milpa, which is a native concept of planting different things, not only corn, but beans and squash and flowers and fruit trees and medicine plants right there near where you are. If you don't have land, you can even plant it on a small pot, you know, and you can have your herbs. If you have more land, of course, you can plant more. And this milpa, as we call it, is planting to feed the body and also the spirit, because it will be planting food in a complete different way. It's not to make profit, like producing bananas for export or palm oil, but producing food in community, in collective, and then sharing it. And we are inviting you today to consider going to Honduras with us. You know, we are organizing delegations that will go this May, this July, this December, next year. So we will facilitate. We have organized over 10,000 people to go to El Salvador and Honduras in the last 40 years. We have a lot of experience, and we will take care of you. You know, our goal will be that you will fall in love with Honduras. You will fall in love and meet, you know, Carla and Carolina and Andrea and, you know, Masbeli, and see and share a little bit of this inspiration. If they can do it, we can do our part. We can walk with them. I want to leave it here because the time is short, but I truly want one of you to commit to go, and we will facilitate you going, whether you need funding to go or, you know, you don't need to speak Spanish. We'll translate every word that happens down there. So we want to make a big push that a way to support the Foro de Mujeres is to physically go to Honduras and walk with them and learn from them, and then come back to the US and accompany them from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. And I also encourage you, if it's possible, I really enjoyed it. I was there with Sister Kathleen. We got to meet so many Hondurans and see their situation and hear their testimony firsthand. It is very moving experience. And Jean was, of course, she works with Jose in facilitating those kinds of trips. But Jean, since you work for Sisters of Mercy and Justice and Immigration, I thought we would ask you what we can do as members of a Mercy institution.
Sure, and thank you, Gail, and thank you to all of our speakers, especially inspiring Carolina, Andrea, and Carla. And as Jose said, if you go, you will fall in love, believe me. I'm smitten in love. But I work with the Sisters of Mercy's Justice team in Washington, D.C. And Jose, if you haven't put in your website, why don't you put that in the chat so people can do those delegations and support Vamos a la Milpa. But the stories we've heard today of hope and of struggle really have a claim on our hearts. We've heard some ways to support the movements there, the Foro, and what Jose shared. So we've got to put winds in the sails of the hope, and we have to stop the violence. And that's the piece I want to bring, because there are some ways that we can stop the violence in Honduras. Since the 2000 coup, our country, the US, has been supporting that government that supported the coup and has continued to support that corrupt dictatorial government. So when we talk about, if you hear a lot about the root causes of migration from Honduras, and you hear about the caravans, why, as Andrea said, it's such a beautiful country, but why is everyone fleeing? Because they're fleeing for their lives. And it's not just they're fleeing violence and poverty. Why is there violence and poverty? And what did US policies do to help create those conditions? Because they have contributed. So we've heard that the military and the police are a part of the problem as well as the current government. Here is a tear gas canister made in Pennsylvania, Homer, Pennsylvania, that I picked up on one of our delegations there when the military was shooting at people, repressing people that are out there simply trying to protest. So there's 2 bills in Congress right now, and it's a very big deal that we got them in Congress, that are calling on the US government, the administration, to stop providing funds and support to both the military and the police. So I put it in the website. If you missed it, I'll name one other website where you can find a lot of this. One's in the Senate, so it means calling Senator Stabenow if you're in, and Peters if you're in Michigan, if you identify or come from another state. It's calling them to ask them to co-sponsor this bill. It was just introduced 2 weeks ago, so that's in the chat. It's the Honduras Human Rights Bill. And in the House, there was just a reintroduction last Wednesday for this current Congress. It's called the Berta Cáceres Human Rights in Honduras Bill, to cut military aid as well until impunity is stopped. The one website, in addition to what I put in there, where you can find this and more, is the School of the Americas website, because on their front page, someone asked the question about how do we get involved in other ways. There's a Global Water Day is March 21st and 22nd, and there's a film festival, and one of them's on Honduras and Berta Cáceres. So SOAW.org is School of the Americas Watch. But I also put in there how to join our Sisters of Mercy of the Americas action alerts. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, both of you. Does anyone else want to add to this? What can be done? Okay, you may have a chance if you want to join in. Let me just read to you something Gloria Rivera shared to all panelists. Gloria, our IHM sister here, very active in Detroit, thank you for sharing your experience and courage, and for the connection to the work of the Mercy community. I appreciated the interconnections you pointed to us both in Honduras and the relationship among the issues and countries. I am hopeful that the Biden administration will take bold and lasting steps to help ease these burdens on the women and bring about justice. So thanks, Sister Gloria, for that. And why don't I open it to all the people who've been so patient, waiting to ask their questions. And we only have maybe just a few minutes, but I would like to either raise your hand if you want to be unmuted, or type your question in the chat and I'll read it for you. There is one statement from Mary Ann, and maybe Jean, you've already addressed some of the issues, because she talked about the role of the United States in the crisis in Honduras. So you did already mention that to a certain extent, but I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that question.
The only piece, there is hope with the Biden administration. However, there is a concern that President Biden's answer is, oh, well, poverty and violence in Honduras, give more money there for projects, and that's going to help the poverty. We don't need projects. We need fundamental change. It's disinformation to say that the war on drugs is why we're in partnership. I mean, the US for the last 10 years has been applauding this government, including when Biden was the vice president. So we have to look beyond just sending money down thinking that's the answer. It's not. It's about getting out of the way and respect the movements and people who are trying to craft their own models of development. Why have we been supporting this government with the military? It's also about extractives. It's about US business interests in that country as well. It's about, the privatization of electricity, dams, big infrastructure projects that benefit a small business elite in their country and in our country. And that has to be unmasked as well. So that's a part of US history in many places, take the resources. But we have to get out of the way and let the movements that are so courageous and beautiful and want their own models of development to flourish.
Okay, thanks so much for this. And since we are basically about time and we've had a couple notes of congratulations, like from Dr. Carmona, thank you for sharing these experiences and information. I hope in this new century, we can all live a life free of inequality, discrimination, and violence. But I want to say for Jose, my last reading of the comments, we have Sister Sarah saying she's interested in going to Honduras. You want to make a special note of that. You
Good.
won't regret. We will be in touch for sure. And for all of the panelists and for all of you, thank you so much for gathering together on this Thursday, close to the International Day for Women. And we thank you so much, Carolina, Andrea, Sister Diane, Sister Kathleen, Jose, Jean. Thank you to Laura, my co-sponsor. Thank you to all the students and all the members. Thank you to Tel, one of our other co-sponsors. Thank you for joining on this day and being part of this event. And stay tuned, look up those websites. We may send you a follow-up email with links. So, Sister Kathleen, do you have a parting word? You can unmute to make your parting word.
I just have a parting question, and that is, will this recording be available to us?
Oh, yes, it will.
Okay.
So we already have subtitles on part of it, as you can see. We will continue. So it may take just a couple of weeks to keep working on the subtitles. Then we will upload it. And then you will be able to post it on your Facebook pages, send it to your friends, have your students listen to it. Yes, it will be available.
I want to say thank you to Gail because, as you know, each of these events takes a lot of planning, a lot of meetings, and Gail is patiently and guiding us. This is a second event in Honduras, so we expect it every 3 months.
Well, I am so inspired from being to Honduras 3 times in my life, once with Jose, but 3 times in my life. So I just feel like I want to continue to do whatever I can from a distance. And so again, thank you all. The Foro is saying thank you to us. And so at this point, thank you all for joining, and I will end the session. We will meet again via email and other ways of communication. Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye,